There are some conversations that always stay with you because of their intensity. And this is exactly the kind of conversation I'm talking about. In this podcast, I sit down with filmmaker and author Devashish Makhija. Now, Devashish is a very acclaimed filmmaker. He has directed some remarkable movies with Manoj Bajpayee like Joram, Bhonsle, Tandav. He has received multiple awards, both nationally and internationally. But Devashish is also an amazing writer and an author. He has written and published many books, children's book, poetry, adult books, fiction books, you name it. And in this conversation, I sit down with Devashish to discuss his latest poetry book. It's an anthology, which is a collection of poems. And boy, was I in for a ride. Devashish is a brilliant man. His mind is amazingly complex. The poetries that he has written are so profound, so personal, and so from the heart that the moment you listen and understand their origins and their genesis, it will surely make a mark on your hearts and in your minds as well. Such was the impact of his poems. He is truly an amazing and an exemplary artist, both as a filmmaker and as an author. Watch this episode till the very end. The conversations were very free-flowing. They were very from the heart. You'll really get to know the struggles of an artist, the victories of an artist, and what really goes inside the mind of a true artist and a true creator. And like always, if you like the kind of people we are bringing in and the content that we are creating, then I humbly request you to please subscribe to Discovery of an Author. Thank you. Dev, thank you so much for agreeing to be a part of Discovery of an Author podcast. This is a fanboy moment for me. I'll tell you why. Okay, I have to say that. I was waiting for the recording to start to say that. First of all, I'm a huge fan of Mr. Bajpayee. Okay? Huge fan, specifically after The Family Man. I mean, that's how a lot of people have started loving him. I have actually seen your movie Bhonsle. और मुझे पता चला था, I think भोसले की उनको कोई एशिया का कोई अवार्ड मिला था.
Asia Pacific Screen Award.
Asia Pacific Screen Award.
Academy Awards.
Academy Awards, right? He won that. And I had seen Bhonsle and I was like, is this Manoj Bajpayee? Because I am not used to seeing that man not say a word.
Right.
He is from, from an area wherein you are very like, Arey, hum to ye kar denge, arey, tumhara ko kya hai? That's his way.
Yes,
but the way that movie started and the way that movie completely, it was beautiful. It was and Dev, I have to tell you something as well. When I got introduced to you, I had no idea that you had written and published books as well. I know obviously you're a writer, but I had no idea that your public works are also out there in the public domain, published works. You reminded me a lot of Satyajit Ray. Because I love that man, yaar. No. Dev, I'm
other level.
Yeah, but I got introduced to him when I watched Gopi Gain Baga Bain. And I was like, what is this? What sorcery is this? How was that man able to put up that scene with Jungle ka Raja jo aa raha hota hai? I'm like, how can somebody shoot that? You know? And then Pathar Panchali, Apur Sansar, wo sari jo trilogy thi unki. Then I got to know about Professor Shonku. Then I got to know about his short stories. Because मेरे बहुत friends Bengali थे when I was in Infosys. And then I purchased his story book, जो पाथर पंचाली की उन्होंने draw करी थी, कि this is how the story will revolve. I purchased that. I was completely in love with that man. I was like, because I love graphic novels, I was like, यार मैं एक दिन सीखूंगा. How do you draw? So I found a lot of parallels in you and him. So I was really impressed, Dev. I had no idea कि आपने published books करी हुई हैं. So it's an honor for me to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Great. Dev, हम ना इस podcast में we're going to discuss about your books. I'm not going to go deep dive into the movies because you have done a number of podcasts on great channels wherein you have really gone down into your process and everything. I have watched all those podcasts as well. और उस podcast में कुछ एक बातें हुई थी story writing पे, which I'm going to have it in the end.
ठीक
But I first want to tell the viewers a little bit about you. You obviously are a director. The three very famous movies that you have directed. There are a lot of movies. You were also part of Anurag Kashyap's team for Black Friday, right?
है.
That's how you started your journey
Yeah, yeah,
in the filmmaking. And then you have directed Tandav. You have directed Bhosle. You have directed Joram. Joram being your latest release, right?
and Ajji, which
Aji, yeah,
yeah,
Aji,
small
Aji.
film.
And I have seen Bhosle. It was brilliant. Joram, I have not seen because I don't think if I have the stomach for it. Whenever kids are involved, I get very. It's very difficult for me to watch that. It's very sensitive for me. But I'm gonna watch that. Dev, your books. One is when Ali became Bajrang Bali. It is a picture book for kids. It's a picture book for kids. Then why Pablo was perplexed. It is also a picture book for kids. Then we are the dancing forest. It is also for kids. Then forgetting, which eventually became Joram. It is also in the form of a trade book, a paperback book. Unga, it's again book slash movie, and the latest book that you're going to deep dive is Bewilderness. Dev, pehla sawal. The first thing I really want to know, your range is amazing. So on one hand, you write picture books for kids. You have written multiple picture books for kids. And on the other hand, you have works like Forgetting, which is Joram, Unga, and Bewilderness, which is completely different. So I first want to understand who are you as a writer? What what gives you that kick? आप क्या सोचते हो कि यार I love writing and I want to write in every goddamn genre? Is that your approach towards storytelling? तो वो पहले आप मुझे बताइए. What goes into your head when you're writing such diversified genres?
I don't know how to answer that, but primarily I've been every time I feel something, whether it's rage or desire or even the urge to kill myself, the first thing that I go to is the written word. I need to express this on a piece of paper. I mean, if you speak to, I think, a Picasso, or you speak to Kurt Cobain, they will also tell you the same thing about the mediums that they choose. It comes naturally. Now, where that instinct comes from, it'll be very hard for an artist to really say, because even as a child, every time I had to express myself and I couldn't, I felt like I was not understood when I spoke. I just wrote. So it's just something that came to me ever since I was a child. So I don't even call myself a storyteller, because with my poetry, I'm not really telling stories. Of course, I mean, you can look at a poem as some form of a story, but it really is putting whatever is in my bile duct onto the page. Now, sometimes that takes the form of a story, sometimes that takes the form of a poem. But that was something I feel like I was born with. I didn't have a choice in the matter, because there are days when if I have not written down what I'm feeling, I feel like I might do something to myself. And I also spent years trying to understand this, that why is there this helpless, absolutely paralyzing urge to write? Why can I not live without it? Because it's also torturous on a bad day, because when you're feeling something and you're the only person who's living with that feeling in a closed room, you want to break out of it and just go out and do something else. But until you have written it out, it's like this ghost. It's not going to let you go. You've got to deal with it. You've got to express it. Only then can you carry on with your life. So I spent years understanding these other artists, from Van Gogh to Kafka to Kurt Cobain to some filmmakers like, say, a Kubrick, where what drives them, like a Stanley Kubrick was up against insane odds with the films he was making.
Yeah.
It's not like his films were making insane amounts of money, but they were big films. And all these artists have fought battles to do what they're doing. Like, why are they fighting? Because even my battles to make the films I make, they bleed me. I have one organ failing on every film I make. So I question it. Why am I putting myself through this? I don't know. There's a helpless urge to do it. If I don't do it, I'll probably cause myself more damage. And all these artists who hopefully you think that their work really moves you or speaks volumes, like the few artists I mentioned, they've all been through that. Like Kafka talks about this in a lot of his essays and letters, that there is this host outside of him who pins him to the table and forces him to write. It's like if I don't write, I can't eat, I can't get on with my day. I have to write. I'm helpless in the face of that burden of expression. So on some days, on a difficult day, I feel that I'm like, if I don't write, I'll self-destruct.
But what have you found then, Dev? What have you found for yourself कि क्यों ऐसा होता है? What
I don't know. It's a release. If I have not released, it's like for me, it's like if I don't eat, I feel dizzy. If I don't shit, my stomach is going to ache. If I don't sleep, my head and eyes are going to ache. If I don't write, something is going to hurt. It's that basic for me. I can't help but do it. It's part of my daily staying alive. I don't have any other way of explaining it because I've thought about it all these years. I've tried running away from writing because I do so much of it. I'm writing in between writing films, I'm writing my books, I'm writing poetry, I'm writing these children's picture books. And none of this writing is easy. Like my new children's picture book has come out, Go Go Flamingo.
Yeah.
It's a really wild, fun book. So when you read it, I mean, I've been asked by friends who've read it. It's a very free-flowing kind of writing, and they're like, "How fast did you write it?" I said, "It took me 9 years. This idea came to me 9 years ago, and I kept battling with it every once in a while. I was not being able to crack the structure and the form. It took me 9 years to finally crack it about a year back. So it's, none of this writing comes easily. There is the urge, there is the material, there is the idea, but to give it form takes a very long time. I can just
Definitely.
write it, but it may not be the best form.
Yeah.
So to battle with it until you find the right form for it, it is backbreaking, it is torture, but I can't help doing it.
Sorry for the interruption, but our YouTube statistics show that around 65% of all of you who are consistently consuming our episodes are not subscribing to our channel. So, this is my request to all of those who do enjoy our content and are finding value in it to please subscribe to our channel. This is the only way in which we can grow. Thank you, and please continue watching and listening to this episode. That is what I was thinking about. The moment you said that there is an urge, that it is something that you have to, it's kind of like a reflex ki, I have to write. Of all the demons that are surround me, I just have to fucking write. What happens is that that's what I was thinking ki, when it becomes like a reflex. So the reflexes, the outcome of reflexes are certain times things which are not structured. If I have a reflex to something, that does not mean it's going to be structured, it's going to be thoughtful, it's going to be very bang on. So that's what I was thinking. Then if it is a reflex, how do you structurize it? How do you create a structure ki acha reflex to bhai likhna hai, that is raw, and somewhere I am writing so that I can calm myself down. That always might not end up into a great structure because it is raw.
So
Yeah.
you have to sculpt.
Yes.
It's like the sculptors of stone, say Michelangelo. He carves his all his statues are carved out of blocks of stone. Now it has boggled my mind thinking about now how do you visualize that statue inside that block of stone, and how do you know which pieces have to be taken away so that the statue reveals itself? That's not an overnight thing. You feel that. So when you say reflex, I have again thought about it and I've divided it into two. There is the impulse, which is in that moment. It's like you hit your knee with a hammer and your leg will kick.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's an impulse. And then there is the instinct, which you take years to hone. Like if you look at a piece of art or I look at a piece of art, we will both respond differently because we have honed very different instincts. Instincts come from many years of circumstances, of choices, of your leanings as a person, a mind, your artistic influences. All of these things shape your instinct, but in that moment there is an impulse. So the impulse is the starting point. So when I feel an idea or I feel rage or I need to put it on paper, I write my raw material, but I know this is not the final form.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And then I spend a long time using my instinct to start to shape it. But the raw material has to come first. That block of stone has to come first. Otherwise, you can't cut the statue out of it. So
But
there is
does
the
it?
impulse and the
Yeah.
instinct.
But does it happen with you when you have that raw form in front of you, and then you circle back and look at it? You are like, no, I'm not going to follow up with this. This is just an impulse.
99 out of 100 times, it's like this is garbage. I want to burn this piece of paper. But
Absolutely.
at least it's a start. and then you dive off that diving board, and you may or may not stay with what you wrote first, but it's a starting point. It sets you off on a journey.
So this is very similar. So in the startup ecosystem, I've been a part of startup ecosystem for many years, and a lot of people come up to me and say, "Ki Raghav, yaar, I have this idea, and I have that idea, and I want to do something about it." I tell them, ठीक है, you write that idea down somewhere, कहीं पर भी Google Doc पे लिखो, अपने
Yeah.
pen pad पे लिखो, stay with it for 6 months.
Yes.
Don't do anything impulsive with it, right? Don't stick with it for 6 months. If after 6 months it still irritates the shit out of you, it still is not letting you sleep, you're like, I'm obsessed, I'm something has taken possess, something has possessed me, then you start writing the plan for it. Don't
Bang
do
on,
it beforehand, you know.
Bang on. Yeah.
Because that's why people they have an idea, अरे भाई हम ये कर देंगे, and they fail because they have not stayed with it. That endurance, Dev, I think endurance is something which is very much, not there. चाहे आप एक टेक स्टार्टअप करना चाहते हो, चाहे आप एक क्रिएटिव आउटलेट बनाना चाहते हो, I really believe.
Bang on. A lot of writers in Bombay, especially in the last 10 years, like when I came to Bombay over 20 years back, we were still from a generation that didn't have so much of exposure through social media and the internet. I didn't even have an email ID. I came to Bombay, and for the first time I had to create an email ID. I didn't know that I could communicate with people through email. But in the last 8 to 10 years, I've seen there's so much of access to information and material and inspiration that I have young writers writing to me in my DM, in my inboxes, in my email, saying that, "Sir, I have this mind-blowing story and we want to narrate to you." I said, "Okay, how much have you written?" "I have a one-pager." I said, "Write a 120-page script and then talk to me." Because by the time you've written that 120-page script, if this is still working, there is a conversation. A one-pager, I can give you 21 pages in a minute.
Yeah.
But that achieves nothing because you've not lived with it.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing merit in the story. You might think is mind blowing because it moved you last night. This day, this time, this day, next year, if it's still moving you, we'll talk.
Is what you're saying, and what I just gave an example of, a good way of defining this statement, which we say, all good things take time.
Yeah.
Is this is what leading to that all good things take time. It's easier to say and hear, but I think this is what goes on for all good things to take
Like even
time.
Bewilderness, that the book of poetry that you've read, when it's my first published book of poetry, the one I did before this, I self-published about 15 years back. So I get asked often that I took about 25 years to write these poems. You're like, you wrote only 56 poems in 25 years? I said, no, I wrote 600. But I spent 2 years trashing 550 so I could arrive at 50, 56, which I think are worth sharing with the world. So even this curation took the life out of me because I wanted to put my best foot forward. So it doesn't come easy, it doesn't come fast.
Dev, this is one thing that always bothers me till date, and I haven't gotten a great answer for that. And help me. Let's just have a discussion around that. I think that's very important for the subject and everything. I remember when I watched Rockstar for the very first time. Beautiful movie. उसमें एक सीन होता है wherein रणबीर कपूर इज एडवाइज मैं भूल गया किसने एडवाइस करी थी, बस somebody advised him कि यार दुख से ही वो निकलेगा, something
You need heartbreak to be able to create.
And then he proposes to her in a way
कुमुद मिश्रा के कैरेक्टर कहते हैं.
yes, he tells कि वो उससे ही निकलेगा तेरे अंदर. Dev, my problem is that, okay, the way my mind works, I refuse to live in a world where this is the only way for great creativity to come out. तो जैसे आपने मुझे कुछ आर्टिस्ट के एग्जांपल दिए wherein you also resonated personally with their struggles and their thought process and their fanatism with respect to their art and a lot of things, with their own struggles, with their demons, right? Have you also come across people who were sane in the way, who were sorted, who had no traumas, who were good, and yet they were able to produce mind-boggling art? It could be art, it could be movie, it could be writing. So yeah, I want to understand, is it imperative for somebody to be hurt? Is it imperative for somebody to be, to have some kind of problems or demons? Cannot sane people who are fine, who are absolutely sorted, who know who they are, can they also not produce great work?
Absolutely can. I don't know if you've seen this interview of mine with Chalchitra Talks.
Munjal. Yes, I've seen that.
He's asked me this question. He's asked me exactly this question. Because he knows me for many years and he knows me as this really pained, tortured, always complaining about the world, always angry soul. And he asked me that, do you agree with this? I said, absolutely not. I have met filmmakers, I have met poets, I have met artists, I have met novelists who are really joyous people and who come from maybe privilege, and even if they're guilty about it, they're like guilty about it, but I have this much, I will make the most of it, I will live a happy life. I'm feeling the urge to say something, I'm writing it, I'm making a film, and that work sometimes is glorious. They are not unhappy people,
Yeah.
and their work, and there are lots of names you might even know, like
Jim Carrey, he's a pretty sorted guy.
no, not
नहीं है
really.
क्या?
He
अच्छा, मुझे
also
लगा था
had
कि
mental
oh,
health issues. A lot of
अच्छा.
the comedians from
Sasha Baron Cohen तो I know. They
Robin Williams,
Robin, yeah, of
yeah,
course.
most of the comedians, they battle a lot with not being able to express any other emotion, but the comedic side, and that causes fractures. But I'll tell you, filmmakers, I might be wrong, but I think Scorsese is a really happy guy.
Yeah, yeah.
The Italians in America, they I don't know, Scorsese may not be Italian, maybe
Yeah,
he's
he's an Italian. He's Italian.
part Italian.
Yeah.
They have a very full, happy life, and
Yeah.
his work is phenomenal. It's not like he had to torture himself to really come up with that. And his films are a little dark. They go into characters who are self-destructive, and you know they
Yeah.
deep dive into the dark
Wall
side.
Street.
Yeah, Wolf of Wall Street.
Wall Street.
But he doesn't necessarily have to be that way. So no, I don't agree with what is prescribed in Rockstar, but that what you see in Rockstar is a very subjective perspective. It is that filmmaker trying to explore that idea. But what happens with the audience is when you like something, you tend to make it a truth.
Yeah.
And then the onus is put on the storyteller. But the storyteller was not saying it like it needs to be this way. He was just exploring that for himself. Because I know Imtiaz for the last 20 years. He's a friend. And he's not the character in Rockstar. It's an idea he had that he wanted to explore. कि क्या ये ऐसी भी journey होती है? Because if I have to make a film, I actually am that guy from Rockstar. I would like to make a
Yes.
story, tell a story about a really happy guy who makes great art, because I'm not that person.
Yeah.
I would like to see what that feels like. So yeah, I don't agree with it at all.
Yeah. So it's a very subjective thing. It depends. Dev, let's come back to your book, Bewilderness. मैं आपको एक बात, I have to give you my personal feedback, right? And I want everybody to know this thing. Every poem in this book is so remarkable. There are certain poems that you reread कि भाई समझ में नहीं आई. ठीक है, एक होता है आप कुछ पोएट्री पढ़ते हैं, like I really did not understand what the writer is trying to say. कवि क्या कहना चाहता है, and you try to reread them. But your poems, you'll feel them. You feel them and you want to reread them for the joy of rereading it. Just for the goddamn joy. मैंने देव लाइफ में पहली बार ऐसा करा होगा, 3-4 पोएम्स को आई हैड द पीडीएफ कॉपी करके अपने व्हाट्सएप पे सेव करा हुआ है, बिकॉज इट वाज आई वाज लाइक आई हैव टू आस्क हिम ये आई कैसे, ये सोचा कैसे. सो लेट्स गेट इनटू इट. सो योर बुक इज जीनियस. ये मेरे पास पीडीएफ है, ये Amazon पे इज इट अवेलेबल फ्रीली फॉर एनीबॉडी टू परचेज, राइट? वो लिंक मैं शिल्पी से ले लूंगा, विल बी पुटिंग इन द डिस्क्रिप्शन. सो देव, आई एम गोना फर्स्ट recite some lines from your poem if you allow me. उस poem का नाम है There Are No Poems. I found this thing very profound.
It's my favorite poem.
It just moved me to my core and my team members as well. ठीक है, मैं पूरा नहीं पढ़ूंगा. I've taken some excerpts from the poem because I really want readers to read through it and enjoy. This is how it goes. Poems, although much longer, are wishless before bullets. A poem may pierce but cannot kill. Poems can stand silently like rifles in corners, like their shadows, like their cold, long iron penises, which spray angry hate into the women they kill. When their bullets run out, like the dead wood in their butts, that once throbbed with moss and arced to greet the first rain, but have now been polished to a place where no trace of life can taint them. Poems can stand silently but do not wish to. And it continues. But this was so powerful, and I really wanted people to know that when you read, you would want to reread them just for the joy. So my first question, and I'm going to read the exact question because that demands to be a bit more technical. It's around if I kill myself today, that is the first poem. In this poem, you reflect on what would change if you ended your life. Then move on to describe the things that would remain unaffected, ultimately showing how life carries on regardless. What inspired you to write about suicide? Is it a poem rooted in personal sorrow? Anything? So I just want to understand the genesis of this poem. So I want to understand your mind in this state when you were writing, what all things led to it. Over to you, Dev.
ये भी आई थिंक मैंने वैभव के इंटरव्यू में हमने बात करी है इसके बारे में दैट पर्टिकुलर डे बिकॉज माय फिल्म्स weren't getting made for a very long time and a lot of things were not working out in my life. I think more than 11 years ago I was in a very very hopeless kind of space. उन 10 सालों में मेरी कुछ 18 फिल्में शेल्व हो गई थी and I had written a couple of books which hadn't come out yet. That very year when I wrote this poem, 10 months later forgetting published, but then I didn't know that it would. So I had bought a gun in the black market and I was about to kill myself. And I was literally sitting एक खिड़की के पास मेरे घर की खिड़की के पास and I had left a little letter so that my flatmate who was not home wouldn't get implicated and the gun was in my mouth. And like I said, every time I feel something really extreme, urge to write comes. And I have felt like writing what I'm feeling. And then I thought maybe I'll write this poem as a farewell poem and leave it behind and kill myself. तो जहाँ मैं बैठा था and I was sitting with a window behind me so that if we had a really sweet landlady, तो मुझे लगा कि if I'm going to shoot my brains out, it shouldn't destroy her wall. So the blood would go out of the window. So I got up from there क्योंकि वहाँ बैठकर मेरा दिमाग नहीं चलता to write the poem. But I felt such a strong urge to write a poem that I got up, I went to the other room, I wrote this poem, it came out. And it made me feel like, what's the point? Even if I kill myself today, what's the fucking point? So this poem in some strange way made me not kill myself. It came literally from that emotion. I was that close and this poem brought me back.
Wow, yeah. I mean, I don't know what to say. I mean, it's from ending to creation. I mean, the thought was to end, and you ended up writing something. You ended up creating something. It's so.
I mean, that's the thing. With this poem, we can discuss a lot of things about it, but the point of the matter is that it came from me almost killing myself. I was that close to death that the whole pointlessness of this whole cycle of feeling heartbroken, films not getting made. Like, how important is films getting made? The poem showed me that mirror, but it had to come from within me.
Oh, that's very. Sometimes, when you, as a reader, when you read such poems, right, you always dismiss it by saying that this is just a figment of the imagination of the poet. But when you actually try to understand the genesis, when you get to know from where this is coming from, it just adds a layer of such rawness and authenticity that one cannot but appreciate. One cannot but appreciate the person, the situation, whatever was going in the mind, and how ultimately things ended up for you, and now we are reading it. I always find this journey very fascinating.
I think all good art will come from a place of a certain kind of deeper emotion, so that artist will have been going through something. Otherwise, that art that is really reaching out to you and like reaching within you is not coming only from craft.
Yeah.
It is coming from an experience. It is coming from a deeper emotion.
And it could be good or bad. It could be good or bad. That emotion could be a feeling of bliss as well, or it could be the opposite of bliss as well.
Yeah, but that art is moving you. It might be moving you to a place of darkness or a place of light, but it is moving you.
Yeah.
And if you're really honest with what you're feeling, it's what I believe of all these years of trying to understand what I'm going to now say. You will be able to tell the artist who is only operating from craft and has not really felt what they're creating, and they're entitled to it. I'm not saying that there's a right or a wrong way to do it, but you can tell someone who leads with craft from one who leads with emotion. Because the one who leads with emotion will linger inside you, whether you understood it or not. Something will touch you and it will stay. That artist will have gone through something to create that art. That would have come
Absolutely.
from a place of experience.
Absolutely. And one example that I can think of right now, I mean, it's a very weird example, but I have to say it. You know, the bhakti movement of Prabhupada, of Ramcharitramanas, Tulsidas, they poured their hearts out in the form of poetry, you know, because they were so bliss in the worship of their beloved, be it Ram, be it Krishna, that they were overwhelmed with that bhakti. They were overwhelmed with that love. And from that love, you know, that what they were feeling came out their works
Yeah, yeah,
that we
yeah.
really appreciate, right? So that what they were feeling could be a bliss, it could be the opposite of bliss, but there's a reason why people still love Ramcharitramanas, because it, you know, really talks to them. It really makes them feel that I can connect to Lord Ram just by reading his works. He is my gateway. I think this is exactly that. That's what I said. I reread your poems for the joy of it. Next poem, very close to my heart. I'm a father. I have a 4.5-year-old son. I love him like anything. This was so beautiful. I cried. This was so beautiful. So,
Fathers.
yeah, fathers. So there is this excerpt from the poem. It's the heart that needs filling. Stomachs can be trained to adjust. And there is another line in the poem which I have not written, but it says that when, you know, it gives him joy. Father, when he looks his son engaging and enjoying it, that satisfaction that he gets, you know, of all the hardships that he's doing in his life, when he sees that his son is, you know, enjoying and being himself, he's like, sab worth it hai bhai, sab theek hai. So Dev, what I want to know, in this piece you captured the quiet sacrifices fathers make and the one wish they universally have for their children. In this poem, is this poem a remembrance of your own father? Again, I want to understand the genesis कि ये भी आपके कुछ childhood memories का है या आपके father का observation का है. Is this what you had written, you felt from your dad, that resonated with you, that was in your psyche कि हाँ यार, I could feel it from my dad? Just again want to understand the genesis of this poem as well. It was beautiful, profound.
You sound so joyous about this poem that I hate to change the tone of this conversation.
But let's do it.
So my father died of a very painful Alzheimer's
Oh,
over many months. So when the day he died, the next day I wrote this poem. So it is about me as a child and all the many sacrifices he made when I was little, because I was book obsessed and really hungry to read and all of that even as a child, and we didn't have the kind of money to buy books. So every time he used to, which is there in the poem, my mom used to tell my dad कि ये 30 रुपए में चावल, आलू, टमाटर और अ, धनिया ले आना. तो वो कैलकुलेट करते थे कि मतलब अगर मैं 1 किलो टमाटर आलू ले लूँ, हम थोड़ा कम खा लेंगे, बट मैं वो एक किताब अपने बेटे के लिए खरीद सकता हूँ क्योंकि वो 4 दिन से मांग रहा है. So it's suddenly all of those things, and I felt guilty for not having done enough for him because he had a very difficult life towards the end, and he was alone in Calcutta while I was alone here in Bombay. I never made fortunes to bring him here. So he had dementia, then he had Alzheimer's, and then he passed of Parkinson's. So this poem was me trying to tell him. I never had the opportunity to tell him when he was alive, because by the time I wanted to do more, he stopped recognizing me. He didn't know I was his son. He had lost his memory. So this poem was me trying to tell him wherever he is that I noticed and I remember.
it's very profound. So I reconnected with a childhood friend of mine yesterday only. After many a years, he's in Canada. So he's like, Ki Raghav, you have a son. I'm like, yes. You know what he asked me? The first thing he asked me, he's like, how's it being a dad? How's it being a dad? And I told him this is the best feeling in the entire world. And he was not surprised by the answer. He was not surprised. He's like, I know that. Why do people keep on saying that? And I told him कि just the joy when he comes up to you or she comes up to you and they say कि खेलोगे मेरे साथ, मैंने कहा that's it. That changes everything. That changes the equation. We are not the nurturers. I mean, mothers do that. We are not. But when they want to play, when they just want to play with you, and when they know that my father also is interested in playing with me, that's pure bliss. That bond is epic. So I was really moved, and I can totally relate to what you're saying. I can totally understand to your emotions and where it is coming from. Again, very profound. एंड दे फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल थैंक्स यार, मतलब आप ये लिखते हो ना, ये हमारे लिए तोहफा होता है. बट जब जब पता चलता है ना ये चीजें कहाँ से आ रही हैं, सो जैसे आप यू वो टेलिंग मी वेयर ऑल दीज थिंग्स आर कमिंग फ्रॉम, आई डोंट नो व्हाट टू से. I can just appreciate that. Thank you for writing it. Because for us as consumers, you are giving us a gift, man. In your book, now there are a lot of poems, couple of poems that you have dedicated to famous artists. Van Gogh को भी आपने dedicate करी है, और ये जो there are no poems है, this you have dedicated to Alok Dhanwa. So I don't know if people know about Alok Dhanwa. पहले आप could you tell us a bit about Alok Dhanwa? Who is Alok Dhanwa? For those uninitiated, for those who don't know who he is.
A very under recognized and under read and underheard poet. If I'm not mistaken, एक ही एंथोलॉजी उनकी पब्लिश हुई, बट वो स्पोकन वर्ड पोइट्री काफ़ी करते रहे जहाँ जहाँ वो जाते थे. उनकी एक बहुत बड़ी एपिक पोएम है जनता का आदमी. दैट पोएम जस्ट डिस्ट्रॉयड मी.
है.
He's a political voice. He's a very sensible political voice, and he points us to things that we continue doing wrong, which all responsible poets do. But the way he does it, it's incisive, it's micro yet epic. So that big poem Janta Ka Aadmi, I read it over a few years. I've read it so many times that it just some one day when I wrote this one, there are no poems. I had not written poetry before that for a while. Because this filmmaking fight, no, it sucks all the other creative energies out of your body. Because not only are you coming up with the script over 1.5 years, then you're fighting to set up the film. Then once the little bit of finance and the actors come in, then you start trying to see कि अब इतने में मैं vision को reorient कैसे कैसे बनाऊं. तो हर रोज वो creative juices इतने dry हो जाते हैं कि और कुछ करने का कुछ रहता नहीं अंदर. There's no raw material. So I had not written a poem in very long, but this Janta Ka Aadmi stayed with me, and this was when you don't mind me being a little openly political,
No,
because
no, 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 no. I
I'm a,
am very similar.
a lot of my art comes from my rage against the machine. So in 2019, when this government got voted back into power, I was feeling so helpless and so angry that I went back to Janta Ka Aadmi and a few other things I used to read. And Janta Ka Aadmi showed me the way to put that anger into a poem. And this poem is the longest I have taken to write a poem. It took me 3.5 months to write this poem. I went back and forth. I wrote that first draft and then I went back to it and then I changed it, then I added something, then I subtracted something. And 3.5 months, when I finally arrived at this final poem, it just felt like, because of the kind of climate we are living in, it just felt like I didn't have it in me to write another poem. So that is the last poem I ever wrote. It's been 5.5 years I've stopped writing poetry.
This is the last poem that you wrote.
Yeah.
There are no poems.
Yeah.
नहीं तो why? So the reason why you are not able to write any further poems. So you are saying there are multiple factors. A, that this movie making takes all the elements out of you, right? You're completely exhausted. And
Yeah, that's
B,
part.
your differences, ideological, philosophical, with the current government is something that really. Why does that bother you so much that is stopping you from creating art, Dev?
2019 में शायद just before the pandemic एक फिल्म आई थी आर्टिकल 15.
हाँ, आयुष्मान खुराना की.
यस, तो उसमें मनोज पावा जो एक करप्ट पुलिस वाले हैं,
या
वो एक आई थिंक देयर इज दिस गर्ल हु इज वर्किंग इन अ हॉस्पिटल. नो शी इज अ
he runs towards her in the end and hugs her or something like that, नहीं?
वो पोस्ट एक छोटा सा कैरेक्टर है. वो पोस्टमार्टम करती है शायद पुलिस के सिस्टम में, एंड शी वांट्स टू ब्लो द विसल ऑन सम करप्ट प्रैक्टिसेस. एंड व्हाट मनोज पावर टेल्स हर इज कि तू क्यों कर रही है ये सब, तू जा एक पोएम लिख, अब कविता लिख, ये भड़ास निकाल दे वहां पे, खत्म करना. Why are you going up against a system? Because we will destroy you. Go write a poem. I felt so helpless when I heard that. I'm like, okay, that's what I do. When I feel this, I write a poem thinking maybe somewhere, somebody, some small thing will change, but nothing fucking changes
Yeah, nothing.
except for
Nothing.
me feeling a little okay about the day so that I can live to see the next day. So, this was that poem that took every last ounce of my poetry out of me. I just never wrote a poem again.
But I'm so sorry. I have to ask this question because
No,
this
no,
is
please.
related.
Yeah.
You were expressing your philosophy, your ideology against an establishment in the form of a poem that you also resonated with the works of Alok Dhanwa.
Hmm.
But I see movies also similar to poetries or also similar to an art form ना तो यही जो aggression या यही चीज है आपको don't you feel that if you would have created movies with your philosophy around the regiment that would have reached out to
Which I
a
have.
lot of more people
Which I
like
have.
continuously if you do
am.
that.
If you see Joram, it is exactly that.
Yeah,
A lot of things in There Are No Poems are there in Joram. So I don't feel the urge to write a poem because a poem, at least today, sadly, doesn't change anything.
yeah, it
There
does
was
not.
an era when Pablo Neruda moved an entire country because people read. People don't read anymore, so I just feel too helpless and incapable now when I write a poem. That's not to take away from the medium of poetry. It's a very personal thing. So because I have other mediums to rely on, I have taken all of this to cinema. But cinema also, I'm dependent on other people's money. So there
Yeah,
is
I
just so
understand
much,
that a lot of
there's just
strings
so
that
much
are
I can
attached.
do there.
Yeah,
I can speak a lot more openly in a poem. So maybe
yeah.
few years from now I'll write another poem. But this poem just took the last fiber of rage for poet that I could express through poetry, took it out of me.
Because I was previously into publishing ecosystem as well. We had a publishing house. We used to publish books as well. Dev poetry books चलती ही नहीं थी.
नहीं
आज भी
आज
नहीं ही चल रही हैं. This is this has become too small of a medium to have an impact on anything on anyone. This is very sorry state. मुझे नहीं पता बाहर क्या है. I don't know बाहर का इकोसिस्टम में क्या सीन है. इंडिया में तो लोग पढ़ ही नहीं रहे. Very few people are reading poetry.
नहीं वो पूरी दुनिया में है सिर्फ
है
यहाँ
ना?
नहीं मतलब ऑफ कोर्स वो अंग्रेज अंग्रेज अंग्रेजों के देश में जो एक बेस्ट सेलर पोइट्री बुक दैट्स अ बेस्ट सेलर will have sold 5,000 copies but here a bestseller believe it or not is 500 copies
Yeah, I know. You are
so there is
absolutely
that
right.
disparity but क्या करें मतलब वो दुनिया भी तो बदल गई है वी आर मोर रिलायंट ऑन इमेजेस नाउ बिकॉज ऑफ सोशल मीडिया एंड the online space. We weren't that way before. Before you had the time and the bandwidth to sit down and read a poem. Where is that bandwidth today? Because when
Yeah,
people are looking at a reel, they don't even have 30 seconds of patience to finish a reel.
they don't.
So there are all of these things that were playing on my mind. So somewhere this poem, because it took so much out of me, I said so much in this poem. I didn't know that I will never write another poem, but 5.5 years have passed and I have not written another poem.
Wow. You know, there is this few lines in this poem. There are no poems. The mother who didn't have her stomach sutured. How do you pronounce it? Dev S.
Sutured. Sutured.
Sutured.
Sutured.
After they extracted her unborn tumor. This is very powerful, Dev. This is some very powerful work. And you know, I really wish that people do buy the book. They specifically go to this poem because this was goddamn powerful. I don't know the last time I saw an Indian poet, though I don't read a lot of poetry, an Indian poet writes such things, yeah. This is very beautiful. And, you know, thank you for telling me where it is basically coming from. That's a very powerful, background. Dev, the
Yeah.
next poem, sorry.
Sorry, and for all that you're saying, nobody wanted to publish this. That's why it's taken me 25 years to get this book out.
नहीं 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 तो हाँ ये भी मुझे जानना था तो is this book self published और if not then कौन
There is
publishes कैसे हुआ फिर ये
there is this one last warrior, this vigilante called Hemant Devate. He's a Marathi poet himself, and he started a publishing house called Poetry Wala, and he's the last poetry publisher left in this country, English poetry publisher. He's now publishing everyone from Nissim Ezekiel to Adil Jasawala to Ranjit Hoskote, the greats. He publishes the greats because there's no one else. HarperCollins, Penguin, they've all stopped publishing poetry unless they are republishing, previous
Yeah.
known names. So he's the last guy left, and he showed faith. And otherwise, I would not. I had self-published one book myself about 15 years ago. This book called Occupying Silence.
This is a graphic. Is this the graphic novel that you
It's
self-published?
not a graphic novel,
Acha.
it's graphic poetry. So
Oh.
I'm also a graphic designer, so I used to
Yeah.
combine my graphic work and typography with my poetry. So I self-published this because no one else would, 15 saal pehle. And it just, I met hair ho gaya just to distribute it, getting people to, be interested in it. So I would never self-publish again. So if Hemant hadn't come into my life and shown the kind of faith he did, this book wouldn't be anywhere. I would never put it out.
That's a very sorry state. I thought that Harper and Penguin are still going gungo over
No,
poetries and poems.
Harper published my short stories,
Hmm.
Forgetting, and they flatly refused poetry. They said, no poetry, it's a company sort of mandate.
Policy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very sad. Yeah, that's very sad. But I do understand the publishing sector very well, and I know you are absolutely right. बहुत बुरे हाल है. Dev, the next poem, which again was very beautiful, मुझे नहीं समझ में आई. मतलब मुझे I got it, but I didn't get it. Tight zoom ins from a 2 BHK. So I think we went very philosophical with the question. So let's hear the question. In this poem, you contrast the simplicity of animal existence with the emotional burdens of human consciousness. It made me wonder, do you believe that the lives of free animals are in some ways better than our own as humans? Do you think this question makes sense? Is it relevant to the poem? Because
Of course it does.
yeah, so I want to understand. Yeah, हमारे बहुत, it took us some time to understand the perspective. It took us some time to कि कवि क्या कहना चाहता है. It took us some time on that. So please explain again the genesis and the thought process of this
तो
thing.
हम इंसान होकर खुद को civilized और the most intelligent species on earth और ये सारी चूतिया चीजें मानते हैं ना खुद
Yeah,
को.
बिल्कुल.
These are all, ये सब सलाखें हैं. We trap ourselves into becoming what we are believing about ourselves. So at some point, I want to be. Don't get me wrong, but there are these two things I have observed about dogs on the street. I'm like, when a human being does what these dogs are doing, we'll be thrown in jail.
Yeah,
Like a dog, you're okay with a dog shitting in the middle of the street. Of course, it's natural, it's an animal. But if I shit in the middle of the street, you're going to throw me in jail. You're going to sue me, you're going to put cases on me, you're going to call me antisocial. Now, two dogs can fuck in the middle of the
Yeah.
street. Like, oh, look at these idiots, they're fucking in the middle of the street. Now, imagine two human beings expressing love in the middle of the street. Society pagal ho jayegi. So we have trapped ourselves in these, these ideas of what we need to be, how we need to be. So when I see animals being animals, I feel envy. I wish I could be them. Which is why the last line of this poem that you're saying is, I watch them and I count my insecurities. I'm insecure being human because I'm bound by clothing and looking a certain way and having to behave a certain way because society has norms. Otherwise, we'll become, जंगल राज हो जाएगा. जंगल राज हो जाएगा. But हम वहीं से तो आए हैं. But this veneer of civilization and a veneer of a
evolution.
uh, evolution bhi, it's more biological than what I'm trying to say. I'm saying it's this trying to live in society and trying to present the best form of ourselves has taken us further and further away from who we really are. That's why today this government goes and it's about to cut down 60,000 hectares of forest land in the Andamans, and nobody cares because we are more concerned about वो कौन सी गाड़ी खरीदेंगे और जल्दी से कोस्टल रोड लेकर हम ऑफिस कैसे पहुंच सकते हैं. बट भाई 10 साल बाद तुम्हारे पास ऑक्सीजन नहीं होगा ब्रीथ करने को, उसके बारे में सोचा है कभी? बट नहीं,
I
इतना
don't think
जुड़ा
so.
हो गए हम बेसिक से.
Yeah. और इसमें भी ना there are a couple of angles to this thing, right? Specific to this geography, and I am very vocal about my opinions as well, very vocal about it. Specific to this geography, I remember, I'm sure you must have known about this episode of Nikhil Kamath, wherein he invited Brian Johnson. Brian Johnson is working on a protocol to live forever. It's a blueprint protocol. He came, he was sitting in an Mumbai ka बहुत अच्छा hotel में with his air purifier that he got with him from the US. During the middle of the conversation, he's like, fuck it, I can't. मैं नहीं
Yeah,
बोल सकता हूँ,
out of breath. Yeah,
right?
I remember.
He went back, and whilst all of this was happening, everybody was criticizing him कि यार Brian Johnson, oh, all that jazz. He went out, he created a video. He's like, what is wrong with you people? And he addressed the nation as an individual. What is wrong with India? Why are you accepting living in this air? Why are you even accepting it? How can you be so blind to something that is really fucking you over and over again? Why have you embraced it? And I think this our nature of embracing is the reason that the colonial powers were able to fuck us for many years, because we fucking embraced it. कि गुलामी तो करनी
अरे
है तो
आज
स्वाद से करो.
हम आज भी कहते हैं ना कि ये अंग्रेजी भाषा और ये कॉलोनियल आर्किटेक्चर वो नहीं आते तो इतना भी नहीं मिलता हमको. अरे इतना नहीं मिलता, कुछ और मिलता. हमने ऑर्गेनिकली हम क्या ढूंढ पाते वो तो हमको पता ही नहीं ना.
पता ही नहीं ना, मौका नहीं मिला ना कभी. और ऐसा नहीं है कि वो नहीं आते तो हमारे पास जैसे वाईफाई नहीं होता, या इंटरनेट नहीं आता, या एआई नहीं आता, या अल्ट्रा लिंक नहीं आता, सब कुछ होता. It's what's this condition that they have to come and conquer us and fuck us so that they can then have a barter. Ki
Yeah,
because
because
you are a servants.
the current government is playing the colonial master rule book. They're
Yeah,
playing the same game.
yeah. They are selling India as a consumer market. Look, it's an open market. We have so many consumers. Come, just exploit. They are selling the consumer base. Ki we have so many consumers of Facebook. We have so many consumers of WhatsApp. We have so many consumers of Geo and whatnot. Absolutely, it's a commodification. So yeah, so tight zoom ins from a 2 BHK was amusing for me. It was really amusing. I loved it. Really brilliant. Now, Dev, this poem is the one that I copied and sent it to me. Elemental. I mean, it was beautiful. It was absolutely beautiful. So this poem explores, and I really want you to please, go deep into it. This poem explores the romantic desires of lovers to fully know one another. I found it beautiful and thought provoking. Do you think that once the waves of passion fade, couples still try with the same intensity to truly understand one another? Can anyone ever fully know another person? So basically, this felt, in a way, an expression or finding of a spark between two individuals. It doesn't matter how and in what conditions they were trying to find it, but there was an effort which I saw. So again, I want to dig your brain, Dave. I want to understand the genesis of Elemental. How did this thing come up in existence?
It's really hard to, especially the poems that are, for lack of a better word, about love and desire and sexuality. It's very hard to sort of pinpoint one point of genesis because so many people come into your lives at different points in your life, and you go on a, I mean, at least I went on a graph of discovery of myself and how I am with a partner. So this also came from multiple, I think, points of arrival. So I don't know. There isn't any one genesis. So a lot of these poems that are exploring relationships, they are over multiple relationships. So I mean, just a very personal piece of information. When I was in school and college, I was very shy and very introverted. Like I have not held a woman's hand till the age of 27. So I've not known intimacy till I ran away from Calcutta. My mum passed away of cancer, so I left Calcutta. Then my father was alone there. So it's a sense of responsibility, duty, trying to. My mum had cancer ever since I was in school, so I was like a primary caregiver while I was in school. So I had become so. I mean, of course, I was out there and doing a lot of art and performance, and I was out there with academics and my art, but I was never out there as a person. I was very inward looking and I had very few friends, and I was the opposite of what I am today. So when I came to Bombay, Bombay is a kind of city, like, and it's a cliche, but if you come from a smaller town, and I consider Calcutta a small town, you might call it a metropolitan, but it's a small fucking town. When I came to Bombay, it breaks you open. You don't have a choice but to go out there.
Yeah.
And by the age of 27 is when I started opening myself up to just being touched or being looked at a certain way and being able to look at someone a certain way. And I experienced a spate of relationships over the next 10 odd years, and a lot of that poetry comes from multiple points of experience. So this too was a culmination of many different experiences.
Because it is expressed absolutely beautifully. It was brilliantly composed, you know, absolutely wild. And, it makes you, I'll be very honest with you. When some of the poems that I read that were sexual in nature, that were erotic in nature, provocative in nature, I did feel aroused.
Yeah,
I had an
that's really
urge
good.
of, yeah, I just had a surge of engaging in a sexual act. I
Yeah.
mean,
No, I'm happy to hear that because I have worked very hard on the erotic and the romantic poems to be able to transfer to the reader what I felt
yeah,
that made me write it. And
I
I have been told this
absolutely, yeah.
even when I read it out, sometimes it does things to people. And that's why for me, poetry used to be, I mean, I don't know when I'll write it again, used to be a very special medium of expression because erotica in India, you can't express it in any other medium. Just a few lines from Elemental, that light brush of elbows opened up a black hole out there somewhere. It's begun sucking on an expanse of time the way you hoped I would on your tongue. अब मैं ये बात एक फिल्म में डालूंगा तो मुझे जूते पड़ेंगे. वो सोचेंगे भी नहीं या सुनेंगे भी नहीं, सिर्फ जूते पड़ेंगे.
And the worst part is that जूते पड़ेंगे पब्लिकली आपको, बट तालियां बजेंगी प्राइवेटली.
जो
दैट
हुआ है.
इज ये यही होगा. आप और पढ़ना चाहेंगे इसमें से, एलिमेंटल में से? बिकॉज देर इज अ सेक्शन इन द पॉडकास्ट वेर इन वी डू टेल ऑथर्स टू रीड समथिंग. डू यू वॉन्ट टू रीड मोर? आप पूरा भी पढ़ सकते हो. दैट इज एक्चुअली द फॉर्मेट.
तो ये क्या एलिमेंटल पढ़ूं कि इससे ज्यादा सेक्सुअल पोएम पढ़ूं?
तो आप ये पढ़ो फिर जो मैंने लिखा हुआ है. ये एक मिनट में बताता हूँ. वॉचिंग यू टॉक.
Now this I can't again reveal publicly, but this poem interestingly is for one specific person
ओके.
almost 10 years ago. But ever since उसकी शादी हो गई और उसका बच्चा भी हो गया.
अरे यार.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah, that makes
Everyone
it
who
more
came into my life
interesting.
gave me yeah, but everyone who came into my life gave me at least one poem.
That's great. Yeah, that's amazing. What a way to look at life, huh, Dev? What a way to look at life, huh?
What are the ways there, man?
What are the ways, yeah? What are the ways?
So watching you talk, you were talking. Your hands slapped the air repeatedly with the enthusiasm of hungry fish. Your fish hands, slapping the air between us, made ripples that traveled to the surface. Little bubbles burst around your lips as the fish swam, thrashing their tails through your story. Your nails kept me hooked, kept the fish tantalized. In your story, man and woman, here and now, desired one another like the color on your nails, the color of a vulva. When it throbs as it is devoured like I devoured your story. Reminded of it every now and then when my mind wandered to your lips, by your slaps, to the air between us. The air that circled you as you spoke, becoming an extension of my arm, its hair standing on end. It could have been your story that did it, or it could have been you, or the pink, or the way your eyes sliced this way and that when your man and woman thrashed and tremored like your fish hands. I'm hungry now, and neither fish nor stories can satisfy me. I would have eaten your nails, but that pink will remind me of your vulva. You are talking. I bring my face to where your hands are slapping the air so they stop. The man and the woman are here and they are now. Your lips part, release a sudden trail of bubbles that snakes its way into my mouth. The bubbles taste of your pink. I can make do with that for now. Next time I'll need the full story.
Amazing. This was bloody powerful, and the way you said it, man. Wow.
भाई अंदर से आया ना.
भाई बिल्कुल बिल्कुल लगा, ये बिल्कुल लगा. एंड सच जिस प्रकार से स्ट्रक्चराइज करा है इसको, द वे इट इज डन, ओह powerful, Dev. This is extremely powerful. There is one more, Dev, which I found very 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 amazing. ऐसे एक दो और है, पर एक उससे पहले मैं आना चाहता हूँ इस पे. Forest Fire 2. Now, Forest Fire 2 was a very unique thing. I thought it was deeply philosophical. Deeply philosophical. वो चार लाइनें हैं. Dev, I would want कि एक बार आप वो चार लाइनें पढ़ें Forest Fire के, and then we'll discuss about that as well. I want to know what I was thinking about that. Is it true? Just want to know that. So let's start with Forest Fire.
In the center of his world, he stood burning. In the jungle, she said, only the rhinoceros runs towards a fire to stamp it out. And she lowered her horn to charge him.
Yeah. Explain this. अरे जितना भी हो सके, let's try to figure it out.
एक poem को ना, I mean, I can talk about origin or inspiration, but I can't explain.
Yeah, let's talk about origin and inspiration, because this was
इस वाले गाना मुझे वो, I don't remember where exactly it came from. I think many prerogatives came together in this one poem. Also, like I was saying, when I was to write those TTTs, that's why I think I spoke about this being a TTT first.
Yeah.
I used to look for inspirations and triggers and little things that could become such a tight, small story all the time. I used to be reading books, magazines on the environment, reading magazines on political magazines, reading tabloid news. Like उस जमाने में मुंबई मिरर करके एक tabloid आती थी, Times of India tabloid, and it used to carry the slightly more vicarious crime stories, which used to follow a particular case that would be in the news a lot, and in the details of those stories and those cases, following them week to week, as to get these little ideas and these threads to turn into stories. So I was assimilating so many of that. I don't know where this particularly came from. It came from crime meets sex meets the environment.
Yeah.
Something somewhere must have triggered something, and the story came, because I did find out that the rhinoceros is actually the only creature that runs towards the fire.
Runs towards the fire. Yeah. And
fire makes everybody else run away.
Yeah, and beautifully, this is a beautiful thing that you have pinpointed, because the moment I read this line, the first thing that came in my mind, and this is that when you read a fact. So this indicated that. I just wanted to tell you that as a reader, I was like, acha. It was not ki, arey, ye to poetic imagination. No, it was an of yeah. So you were able to convey that beautifully, because for me it was like, acha, mujhe to pata hi nahi tha.
So I will make you hear Japanese haiku.
Let's do that.
I learned Japanese haiku and compressed some of my ideas into that haiku.
Let's do it.
So the haiku structure is, I mean, just for the audience,
viewers,
is 3 lines which are exactly 5, 7, 5 syllables. You can't go beyond that. The word has 3 syllables. Say la bill. So you have to fit it in 5, 7, 5 syllables. So there's a certain science that the Japanese discovered. I mean, they were sort of experimenting with a meditative kind of idea that 5, 7, 5 brings that idea, distills that idea to its core in nature.
Yeah.
So they don't allow you to go beyond. So if you listen to Japanese haiku, because Japanese, the language, has a certain sound and intonation, it's almost meditative. But when I implement that structure in English, it doesn't have the same impact. But I used to do it just as an experiment.
No, but had you been Japanese, you would have been able to do justice to it, is what you're trying to say in a way.
No, had I been Japanese, I would do it in the Japanese language. And the haiku structure comes from the Japanese language. So when you do it in the Japanese language, it has a meditative quality.
Makes
sense. 5, 7, 5 syllables.
That's interesting.
When I do it in English, it is an intellectual exercise. It doesn't have the same meditative impact of the Japanese haiku.
Yeah, it's similar to...
Similar to maybe French cooking, but with a vada pav.
Yeah, makes sense.
It will not have the same impact of compressing
absolutely
the flavor, because you're working with such strong spices.
Makes sense.
but we do it when we are experimenting. We want to
Yeah.
just see what happens.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is this
Let's
poem
start.
that
Yeah.
a small poem, a tribute to Vincent van Gogh,
Yeah.
because Vincent van Gogh and M.F. Hussain, these are artists whose work really moved me. And my only way to tribute them is, I'm nowhere close to them as a painter,
Yeah.
is to write a poem to their work. So it's called Smudge, because if you see his more famous works, they're the sunflowers.
Yeah.
So there's a certain brushstroke which is a smudging with the brush, and there's a lot of smudges that go into creating that sunflower,
Makes.
and that's a style, and I'm oversimplifying here, but
Hmm.
that's a style that had not been seen or experienced before Vincent. So this is a tribute to that style. It's called Smudge.
Let's start. Yeah.
I spoke to Mauve. She hired my finger for a baptism into blue.
That's it.
That's it. So it's like I turned the color mauve with my fingers into blue. It's like without me, mauve couldn't have dreamt of being blue. So it's what Vincent could achieve. So now when I break it up in syllables, it is I spoke to mauve she.
Yeah.
5.
5, 7,
I
5,
reared my finger for a 7.
7.
Baptism into blue. 5.
Wow. So basically, what you are saying is that in poetry also there is a lot of scope for experimentation and creating new styles and formats, Dev?
Of course, of course. So if you see each of my poems, some of them are rhyming,
Yeah.
most of them are
Yeah.
blank verse,
Yeah.
some are haiku. I try to keep pushing myself. That's why I take a long time to structure a poem. Like you said, that first outburst is not my final poem. So a
Yeah.
lot of poets today, they put their poems on Facebook or Instagram the minute they wrote it. I might sound arrogant here, but I'm like, I'm sorry, but you're not a poet, because what I'm reading is a first draft. I'm getting bored in the middle. It's rambling in certain
Mm.
places. If you live with it for another month, you can make it a better poem, but you don't have the patience and the bandwidth to. So you're not a poem. Being a poet is not just vomiting what you felt. Is also about crafting it. Even
Absolutely.
Michelangelo
Yeah.
spent 3 years cutting one sculpture out of a piece of rock, which is why he's Michelangelo.
See, it's about all good things take time.
Oh yeah, yeah,
There is an absolute science behind it. There's an absolute process behind it. It's not something that in its raw form would always be right. If
yeah.
you understand the science and process behind it, you can convert that rawness into something magnificent for the end user to then consume. Can you read Fathers? We had a
I'll
discussion
end
on
up
it.
I'll end up crying, man.
तो
It
छोड़ो फिर.
always in the last verse, I choke. I don't know how to finish it, but let me try.
Yeah. Let's give it a shot. Yeah.
It looks like either you or I will choke. Let's both choke.
Yeah. Let's both choke. Yeah.
Fathers.
बहुत पावरफुल थी देव. इट वाज जस्ट जो रिलेट कर पाएगा ना उसको तो मजा आ जाएगा, स्वाद आ जाएगा.
They wait on scooters at right angles to the sun, measuring the slowness of the summer heat against the rapidly approaching bright future they wish upon their sons. They spend sparse holidays folding old newspapers into paper boats, assuring their adventurous little boys that love, when shaped this way, does not capsize. They steal money put aside by mothers for potatoes and rice. Those comics may not fill the stomach, but fathers seem to know that it's the heart that needs filling. Stomachs can be trained to adjust. And when their little boy squats like a bird, turned to the window light, hungrily pecking at that comic, his little heart skipping like a flat pebble across the water of his childhood, his father watches, his heart full now, hoping this could stay exactly this way forever, but knowing it will not be so. He turns, walks away, measuring the slowness of his stride against the rapidly approaching shadows of eventuality.
I was about to cry, but it's very powerful, यार. Like, beautiful. देव एक और करें, एक और लास्ट करते हैं. ये करते हैं. देर आर नो पोएम्स. which you also loved, which I absolutely loved. Thodi badi hai, but it is brilliant. Let's do this last one. There are no poems.
This is a poem that has 25, 30 years of my anger, my trying to understand the system, trying to understand where I fit in the system, what can I do to change it? Does it can it be changed, or are we so doomed as a species कि sorry for my language हमारी वाट लगनी चाहिए
बिल्कुल.
before we learn our lesson and
Yeah.
become better at handling this planet? So it's all of that. It's all of that into a poem. Because when I said I took 3.5 months to keep crafting it, I tried very hard to bring it down. I felt that it's too long. And am I being self-indulgent? And of course, it was double this length. I brought it down to this much. And then by the time I locked it, I felt that need all this said. I can't
Yeah.
take anything out of it because I'm talking about an entire history of a civilization of a certain species. I'm trying to say everything I feel about us as a fucked up species
Yeah.
and a country.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that disclaimer, and yes, without Janta Ka Admi by Alok Dhanwar,
Yeah.
there would be no There Are No
Yeah.
Poems.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
There are no poems. There are no poems for the mother who didn't have her stomach sutured after they extracted her unborn tumor, afraid she would birth yet another fragile small mouth filled with 1,000 sharp edged questions that might erupt like puzzled saplings through the blood soaked earth, quite like the three who came before her and now lie rotting in the same masculine mud. There are no poems for her who, had she lived, would have whiplashed endless whys with a furious tongueless mouth, her circumcised soul the size of a curse that a species cannot endure. There are no poems about the slithering fear they carry coiled inside their military hearts. Fear with forked tongues, forked as forceps, that extract any and all future whys, that may dare to doubt the absence of poems in this land. There are poems, though, written in prisons about good men in cages, quietly living out unjust sentences as if forbearance were man's greatest virtue. No matter how many others beyond those cages, imprisoned in skins whose shades start wars, were made to snag on battle tank chains, torn to abstractions, their histories littering the gutters outside those prison walls like the shadows of untrod snakes. There are no poems, though, about those men who chose instead to blow up those prison walls. Poems, although much longer, are wishless before bullets. A poem may pierce but cannot kill. Poems can stand silently like rifles in corners, like their shadows, like their cold, long iron penises which spray angry hate into the women they kill when their bullets run out. Like the dead wood in their butts that once throbbed with moss and arched to greet the first rain, but have now been polished to a place where no trace of life can taint them. Poems can stand silently but do not wish to. My poem would like to greet you the way a furious matchstick greets a river of oil. There are no poems for fires started this way. But if there happen to be one or two, they will have leapt into their own fires, unwilling to outlast them. There are no poems that stand as shrines to the self immolated. Words dream of being embers, not ash. I carry your poem in my hand. It was carved here like a road, it was to take us somewhere. I carry your poem on my shoulders like a father would have that little girl had she been birthed. I carry your poem around my neck. My chest is words read by those who understand my tongue. I met one who didn't. She stared at me with fear. Our skins were not the same shade. I felt the urge to reach for a knife then, since she would have never allowed me to kill her with your poem. There was a poem I wrote once that stood defiant before an atomic sorrow. I waited for one of the two to explode, hoping to go down with it. But instead, yet another unsuspecting geographical boundary somewhere shivered and changed shape, including a new poem on one side excluding a familiar one on the other. There are no poems for those who cease to belong when boundaries change this way.
Beautiful. Beautiful, yeah. I mean, the way you recite, Dev, it is profound, amazing. It's music to the ears, यार. मतलब you are a complete package, Dev, यार. आप सही में यार, आप लिखते हो तो फील हो जाता है, when you're reciting तो फील हो जाता है, and that we can see in your products, be it your movies, be it the way you're talking right now, the way you're writing. Incredible you are, man. You should never stop creating.
नहीं वही मैं कर रहा हूँ वही कर रहा हूँ but
बिल्कुल,
on some days it's a little heavy to bear कि if I'm doing this only for myself, why do it at all? But on some days, but yes, I cannot stop because like I said about Kafka, it's a ghost that haunts you.
Yeah.
It's a devil that sits on your shoulder and it won't let you go. It'll be like lick नहीं तो मैं तेरे को मार दूंगा.
Yeah, it's a child which is growing, which wants to come out of you. आप
Yeah.
कब तक उसको अंदर रोकोगे?
नहीं रोक सकते.
नहीं रुक सकते, वो फट के बाहर आएगा ही आएगा. आपको दर्द होगा, आप चीखोगे, आप चिल्लाओगे, बट द प्रोडक्ट वुड बी ब्यूटीफुल. द मोमेंट यू विल कीप इट इन योर हैंड्स, यू लाइक फक या.
Bang on. When I hold this book in my hands, it's 25 years in the making. Like even the film that has taken the most toll on me has taken 10 years to make, but this book has taken 25 years. So it's very satisfying to hold.
What's your opinion, and do you like graphic novels?
Yeah, I'm a huge graphic novel fan.
Same here.
इस देश में हम उसको इतना तवज्जो नहीं दे पाए अभी तक.
बिल्कुल. And this pains me. This is my pain point, Dev. मैंने इस पॉडकास्ट पे दो ग्राफिक नॉवेल्स के साथ मैंने पॉडकास्ट कराया. You cannot imagine the troubles it took me to find them.
Who are these people?
So one is Bharat Murthy. Bharat Murthy is also a filmmaker. He's in Bangalore right now. He's an FTTI Film Institute का pass out है. He is now a professor at a very good college. Last उनकी एक travel log आई थी, Harper Collins ने publish करी थी. That was around his and his wife's travel around the Buddhist sites. ठीक है, because he is a practicing. I mean, he is a practicing Buddhist. He is also a editor in chief of a comic magazine called Variety.
Yeah. I know Bharat. Yes. Sorry, I didn't connect. Yeah, he does this magazine.
Verite क्या बोल, मैं कभी नहीं बोल पाता. Verite या Verite. It's a French word. Verite. तो we spoke about all the cultures.
Interesting guy. Very interesting guy.
Yeah. तो मैंने भरत को बोला था, मैंने कहा भरत, my dream is to start a graphic novel publishing company because I can bring a lot on table. It's just that I don't know where to find the writers and artists from. Rest everything I can handle. But I am not interested in Indian mythological stories at all. मुझे नहीं करना है, मुझे वो रेल में जाना ही नहीं है. मैं ना आपको एक व्हाट्सएप करूंगा एक चीज. देयर इज दिस कंपनी व्हिच हैज रिसेंटली स्टार्टेड, बाहर की कंपनी है, मेरे को वैसे ही अच्छा लगता है, कॉल्ड डिस्टिलरी, DSTLRY.
ओके,
है ना. मैं आपको व्हाट्सएप करूंगा, उनको अभी आप टाइप करो अगर आपके सामने कुछ सिस्टम है तो, DSTLRY.
ओके.
डिस्टिलरी जिन लोगों ने स्टार्ट करी है, दे वर द फाउंडर्स ऑफ कॉमिक्सोलॉजी. कॉमिक्सोलॉजी जो अमेजोन ने खरीद ली थी, बिकॉज they are very geniuses. वो you know what's good about them, they combine tech with this thing. वो टेक को हकालते नहीं है. उनको पता है कि इसको तो हमको लेवरेज करना है. Comixology was their software wherein you can read books on, है ना. They were huge. They've just look at distillery. इनके कॉन्सेप्ट देखो. मैं तो रोज फैंटेसाइज करता हूं कि ये करना है यार. मुझे माइथोलॉजी नहीं करनी है. I bloody don't want to get into it. Why cannot we do something futuristic, something sci-fi, something amazing, something like Moss, Art Spiegelman की, something like Palestine, something like ये अपनी Persepolis. Why?
ब्लैंकेट्स और हबीबी पढ़ी है?
नहीं पढ़ी. आप मुझे व्हाट्सएप करना प्लीज. प्लीज आप मुझे व्हाट्सएप करिएगा.
So I have 3 massive. So I'm a book buying freak. So I have 3 massive cupboards of books. One cupboard is just graphic novels.
क्या बात कर रहे हो यार. ठीक है देव, थैंक यू सो मच. It was absolute brilliant speaking to you. We'll be in touch via WhatsApp.
Yes, dost. Thank you.
Take care. Bye.